Good morning. I'm using my camouflage today. This isn't really working so much. We'll get rid of that. Trimmings from the Christmas tree? Maybe, we'll say. Peter Brown's The Wild Robot, Chapter 29, The Beavers. We are outside today because it is absolutely beautiful and I like being outside a little bit more. So, here we go. Every day, the beavers swam along their dam, inspecting and repairing it. The wall of wood and mud allowed only a trickle of water to pass through, and it had turned a narrow stream into a wide pond that many animals now called home. As Roz and Brightbill walked around the pond, they passed hundreds of chewed-up tree stumps, proof that the beavers needed a constant supply of wood, and this gave Roz an idea. The robot swung her flattened hand, and the sounds of chopping wood echoed across the water. They were soon replaced by the sounds of footsteps and shaking leaves as the robot carefully walked along the beaver dam with a gosling on her shoulder and a freshly cut tree in her hand. The beavers floated beside their lodge and stared at the bizarre sight with open mouths until Mr. Beaver slapped his broad tail in the water, which meant, "Stop right there!" The robot stopped. "Hello, beavers. My name is Roz, and this is Brightbill. Please do not be frightened. I am not dangerous." She held out the tree. "I have brought you a gift. I thought perhaps you could use this in your beautiful dam." "No thanks," said Mr. Beaver. "I have a perfectly strict policy. Never accept gifts from monsters." "Don't be ridiculous," interrupted Mrs. Beaver. "We can't let a perfectly good birch go to waste." "I'm afraid I must insist," said Mr. Beaver. Mrs. Beaver turned to her husband. "Remember how you asked me to point out when you're being stubborn and rude? Well, you're being stubborn and rude." Then she turned back to Roz. "Thank you, monster. If you'd be so kind to drop the tree in the water, we'll take it from there." "I am not a monster." Roz tossed the tree like a twig. "I am a robot." The tree smacked against the water and sent the beavers bobbling up and down. Just then, Brightbill started peeping. "Mama, hungry." So Roz dropped the ball of grass into the nest. "The gosling thinks you're his mother?" came a quiet voice. It was Paddler, Mr. and Mrs. Beaver's son. "His real dad is dead," said Roz, "so I have adopted him." There was a brief silence. Then Paddler looked up at Roz and said, "You're a good robot to take care of Brightbill." Mr. Beaver sighed. Yes, that's good for you, Roz. But I don't understand what this has to do with any of us." "My son is in need of a home, and Loudwing said you would help us build one." "Of course he did," Mr. Beaver muttered to himself. "Loudwing gets me out of one lousy jam, and I have to spend the rest of my days doing her favors." Mrs. Beaver glared at her husband. "Sorry," he said, realizing that he was being stubborn and rude again. "Stay right there, Roz. We need to have a family meeting." The three beavers slipped under the water, and a moment later their muffled voices could be heard inside the lodge. The robot stood on the dam and patiently waited with her son. "Mama, Mama." "Yes, Brightbill. I'm trying to act like a good mother." A ripple, and Mr. Beaver had appeared above the water. "If you bring me 4 more trees, good ones, healthy ones, maybe I'll help you with you and the gosling." "That is wonderful," said the robot. "We will be right back." All right, so that is the end of that chapter. I'm going to put a link up as well about the benefits of beavers, because I know my class had a lot of questions about that, like, why do beavers make dams? What do they do? And I think it's important for you to know the difference between a small little stream and the large pond that a beaver dam can create and all the animals that might help. So I think you're going to find that interesting. Check the link. Thanks for watching. I will see you guys a little bit later. Hang in there and get out in the sun.